Spectrum, we're a software company, and actually it's fitting that we're following Toronto here, because we're a software company that embeds software into wireless devices. We think that there's great opportunity on being able to harvest more detailed spectrum data and using that as a feedback loop to make wireless devices more efficient in the way that they operate. So what does that mean from a product perspective? Like I said, we're a software company. The primary software product that we have is this spectrum sensing toolbox. It's a relatively low-cost software applique that we've embedded onto many different types of wireless devices. Our heritage going back in time was actually a lot of government R&D work. We're here in a startup-like environment because it's only been in the last year or so where we started to go to take this to the commercial market. But we think that the ability to harvest large volumes of spectrum data, to be able to do interesting feature extraction of that data, and to have that data available real time to a wireless device, increases coverage, capacity, quality of service in really interesting ways. We're not really a hardware company, but we do have what I would refer to as a reference design from a hardware perspective, which is our Spectrum Bug product. And we've used that as kind of like a sidecar device in different wireless network implementations to show the value of harvesting spectrum data for those types of services. We use the term spectrum intelligence often to kind of market what we do. And there's a lot of external factors that play in our success. Right? Certainly the spectrum crunch is well known. But then there's policy, investment, and standards work that kind of play into our value. From a pure spectrum harvesting perspective, that comes and doesn't affect all those external factors. But to the extent that you use that technology to change the way that a wireless device may operate, we have a lot of interesting technology, namely this notion of dynamic spectrum access that uses spectrum data to change frequency or to change power or those types of things. You may see from an industry consortium perspective in the last year, this Dynamic Spectrum Alliance has been born for kind of global outreach on dynamic spectrum applications. And very recently, there's this National Spectrum Consortium coming out of DC that is really pushing these concepts both for government and for commercial alike. As we know, it's getting to be a much, much more congested spectrum environment. And in that environment, to the extent that those devices can, in a very smart way, harvest spectrum data, and for content distributors to be able to choose that best path based on spectrum data without having to go farther up the network layer, brings a lot of efficiencies to this type of situation. We know that traditional, non-traditional access providers are looking for other methods to distribute data, from blimps to satellites to small UAS types of devices. To be able to go put those out there in high quantities requires smarter ways to operate. And our software helps in these types of situations. As far as our customers, so we're getting pretty good traction in the distributed antenna system space. And then also implementing this on commercial off-the-shelf satellite modems for the satellite space. We embed our software with other wireless application developers. So putting our spectrum harvesting technology next to other software applications that go into wireless devices. The wireless integrators, of course, and to the extent that we can go implement a hardware version of that as a sidecar without having to get into the product development cycle. We've done it in the TV white space, for example. And then, like I said, our heritage is wireless R&D and prototyping. And we still do a fair bit of that for companies who are looking to lean into this type of technology, going and doing pilot implementations, and we've done that many times for those types of companies. So with that, questions?
Can you talk about how you monetize with some of these different use cases?
Yeah, so it's in the commercial space, it's a software license. Right, so for distributed antenna system, for example, Right? They go and that's an interesting application because you have all the RF in an in-building environment converging to a single interface. Right? So we can go and embed our software in that type of system, and we sell it as a license.
So on a per antenna basis.
Well, it actually scales to many, many antennas, so it's really on which hardware in that particular platform does it have to be multiplied, right? If they can do that on a single blade, it's a single license. So it's kind of dependent on how, in the DAS space, how that scales.
Can you describe your deployment footprint?
So we have, in the DAS environment, that's still early. It's still tens of devices. For what we've done in the government space, hundreds of implementations of that, from airborne wireless implementations to technical radio environments and the like. Like I said, it's only recently that we've started to take this to the commercial world.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.